I thought that help was here, but it was my own reassurance bouncing round 100,000 times in my own ecosphere. If every time you speak you keep it off the record, consequently you can keep your record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit's ears. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the basosphere condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere, where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink them twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. Gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. You are. They'll gladly stagnate a living wage, snap the chains, bury it. Labor slaves in rusty cages dragged behind a chariot, led by Mr. Racial Jungle, Joseph R. Iscariot, fighting over scraps as they barrage us all with variants and BuzzFeed clickbait, straight until we're paralyzed, trying to distract us from the concentration camps that Joe had swore he'd close but only chose to amplify, where they got 50-something kids in cages made for 5 to occupy. And no, she hasn't seen the camps, but Harris swears they're paradise. She tells us the facilities are safe, and that right down to the women, they are regularly sterilized. Then she throws her head back and she proceeds to laugh, that sort of heartless cackle you'd expect from someone working steadfastly on behalf of the virus and a Congress full of parasites. And where was I? I was busy cashing every blue check, demonstrating plainly all the narratives expected from the verified. I was busy breeding verbal leeches by the terabyte. Train them to exsanguinate the wealthy while they sleep at night. Bleed the oil barons dry and barren. Say they showed us how to share and now we share alike. Tell them I contracted rabies from a feral mic. Now I'm just another species losing sleep to noise pollution and these glaring lights, forced to change its habits and adapt to just survive. But now it's safe to say that some of us are thriving in the moment, throwing shit on presidential homes beneath the Paris skies. So if you feel like you're just powerless, I guess you bought the lie. But I can tell they're petrified of our collective might, 'cause I can hear those gentrifiers weeping at the sight of our collective rights. And I only can imagine the intensifying fear of knowing revolution's near, and all that's left to do is simply wallow in the thick anticipation of a rabid bite. And baby, one day you can ask your leaders just what that was like before you grab a slice. So if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. Honey, if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. See, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, and tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't. You see, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and make you build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, where they'll tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So I try to sit down with my wife and watch TV, but I just see propaganda elevating the police in the simplest of sitcom banter, and tiny little altars full of offerings to corporate masters in every well-planned wide pan shot of the name brand stocking up the pantry. Pull back one long tracking shot out to the garage to the logo on the Camry. Nice tight shot of the Camry, close-up view of the Camry, slow pan up on the Camry, long slow zoom to the unmoving human who's up in the front with the tube pumping fumes to him straight from the back of the Camry. Ashamed he just could not provide for himself, let alone for his family. It's a blue pill mindset that spent 2020 making dance beats.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride, and thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
Ignorance is bliss, which explains why a lot of us are so fucking happy.
quick to take the trip for all its trappings. Never one to ask what's up, what's going on, or God forbid what's happening. A lot of us would strap into the ride and then spit right in the eye of the guy whose job it is to snap your fastenings. But maybe we're all born with that capacity. Maybe each of us comes standard with humor, compassion, malice, and audacity. Some of us are blind to the system, but some see it fine and say this is how it has to be. Some of us can stare wide-eyed at a nationwide human catastrophe and only offer platitudes and recipes. And I wish that I could tell myself that nothing's worth obsessing past my everyday necessities. I wish that I could cry fake news over anything that threatened me, tune out our abuses and consume a little levity. Wish that I could offer up my son a smoother destiny. Wish I had some better lessons for how best to answer questions for the things I've been perpetually questioning. But I'm too busy looking at our leaders, wondering what I might be missing from their messaging. Trying to find the reasoning to let 250,000 people meet an early reckoning. And even though I know the truth, it's hard to swallow something that's so literally sickening. Hope is ever dwindling, COVID ever beckoning. Winter slows your breathing, but your pulse is ever quickening. Even though I know the truth, it's hard to keep listening. I'm done with my epiphany, my innocence is blistering. I'd like to think I'd taste the earth before I'd ever kiss the ring. Hard to speak the truth and harder still to keep listening.
Sometimes I think I miss being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. Thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. Both bleed us so dry. Both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
Told to come alone. Joe said if you vote for him, he'll abdicate his throne as the father of the crime bill, soul of Jim Crow. Proud to live and vote as a Strom Thurmond clone. If he tried to kiss your daughter with a camera rolling, he'll try more than kissing her alone. Cozy up with Jill for a photo like a portrait of the Kissingers at home. You know I hate to kill the messenger, but if he's gotta go, we can FaceTime and slit his throat while he stares into the phone. Like if you don't know, kitten, now you know. This is where austerity has gotten us. This is all that palpable excitement for a 20-year wait on forgiveness for your student loans. But a distraction's a distraction and it's time to see some action. So here's one last song for Joe, before I try to keep his name out of the lyrics in my phone. Try to shift the focus to our senators and everyone in Congress who is all too happy to be hidden while we're wasted to the bone. It is not food insecure, it's starvation, and it lurks in almost half the country's homes. So if you plan to lay down, hold your nose and vote for Joe, have the guts to admit that you chose to submit and that you decided lending your support to a pedophile must be a step towards hope. That a vote for a man that spent his whole life implementing laws that dehumanized people of color is a vote against fascism. When you know damn well he's just a kinder, dumber face on the same white nationalism.
Welcome everyone to the Politics of Survival. Thank you for joining. And I wanted to start off the hour with a couple of announcements. Coming this weekend on Saturday at the Hyatt Regency in Chicago, I will be joined with Caleb Maupin and Dan Kovalik and Garland Nixon, as well as Peter Coffin at the Anti-Imperialism Conference being sponsored by CPI, the Center for Political Innovation. Very honored and excited to be speaking with everyone that will be attending, and you're welcome to join. I'm gonna have my book there, Left Out When the Truth Doesn't Fit In, and I will be signing books and having it there. And if you can find it in your hearts, CPI could use a little help. Conferences like this, especially during this time, are hard to put together with all the speakers. So if you could throw them a little love, some money there, and there's the Cash App that Reef so kindly put in the chat. So all of that being said, I know it's tight times, but any little bit helps. So thank you, and help the Center of Political Innovation, because we need to push back on the imperialists and we need to stop the warmongering. And conferences like this, where we can have the discussion, are super important. And it's good to have uncensored and frank discussions that, push back on xenophobia and bigotry and Russophobia, because Russia is not our enemy and neither is China. And we have a lot of really intelligent speakers and with a lot of experience who will explain why. So hopefully you'll see you there in Chicago, or you can check it out online as well. So today I have someone I've always wanted to have on my show, who I've noticed his work. He works for RT as well as other China Daily at times and other media outlets. His name is Bradley Blankenship, and he just is joining us now here from Czechoslovakia. Hi, Brad. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
Good, good. Thanks for coming. So you sort of had what now people are calling a badge of honor. You got put on a Ukrainian blacklist by the Ukrainian government. So could you kind of explain to the audience what that even meant, and how did you wind up on that list with Tulsi Gabbard and Caleb Maupin and Rand Paul? What happened? What were you doing there in Czechoslovakia?
All right. So it's kind of a funny story because, I didn't even know I was on the list. I guess it came out like sometime in the middle of July. And I was on Twitter and I had somebody quote a video of my band performing, and they said, "Hey, this guy's on Zelensky's blacklist." And I was like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? Zelensky's blacklist?" So I looked on Twitter, couldn't find anything. I Googled it, couldn't find anything. And I just looked up like Ukraine blacklist. Finally found a news article about it that they mentioned that like Glenn Greenwald was on it, John Mearsheimer, and who else? Jeffrey Sachs. And I was like, wow, these are three people to varying degrees, but for sure, John Mearsheimer and Jeffrey Sachs are two people that I respect tremendously. And I thought, okay, so they're on a Ukrainian blacklist. And sure enough, I looked there, and right under Glenn Greenwald is myself. I guess there's like about 70, my girlfriend told me there's like 74 people on there, including me. And I had some troll on Twitter said like, oh, the biggest notoriety that you're ever going to have in your life, and you think you're so proud of this. I was like, no, I fucking hope not. Like, I'm only 26 years old, like,
yeah.
Geez,
yeah.
I hope I do something with my life besides this. But yeah, I guess it is kind of a badge of honor. So what was I doing to get on there?
Yep.
Okay, so I think it had to be a number of different things, because my column at RT doesn't say that I live in the Czech Republic anymore because of an incident that I had there. I actually, right when the conflict in Ukraine broke out, like at least the stage of Russia being involved there directly, I had people come to my house, actually. And so after that, I asked them, please, can you take away the fact that I live in Prague on my column? And so they did that. I still have it on my contributions to Chinese media because I assumed that these people were coming to my house because of some connection to Russia or something, right? So I told RT that. So I think it has to, I wanted to say like, okay, it has to do with my affiliations with RT, but I think it's more than that, because if you look on the list, it says that like next to me, it has a little flag emoji for the USA and for the Czech flag, even though, by the way, I'm not a Czech citizen. I'm just living here. So they have to know that I have some connection to the Czech Republic. So obviously they're reading not only my contributions to RT, but probably somewhere else as well. And then like in terms of the statements that I've made, like what are the views that I hold that are consonant with Russian propaganda? It's like the most basic things, like we should negotiate peace. You know, the sanctions are not working. Like it's, you know, if you just like stick your hand outside, you can tell that the sanctions aren't working.
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's
the
not
most
like you have
obvious
a
thing.
big Z on your profile.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of these people.
Yeah.
I even said on my column at RT, no less, like funded by the Russian government, said on my column at RT that I believe that Russia's incursion in Ukraine is a violation of international law. So I mean, like to assume that I'm some kind of hardcore military or supporter of the Russian military is ridiculous. And then the third point they have is that Russia or that Ukraine is a hotspot for terrorism. And I said that because there is very credible news reports of people from near where I live. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. There's people in Ohio that are fighting in Ukraine right now who are linked to neo-Nazi groups in the United States who want combat experience to start a civil war in our country. And me pointing that out does, you know, it's not like I'm not making these claims. It's like these are established reports in the media, and you can find them anywhere. For me to say that,
yeah,
it's
U.S.
not
intelligence were the ones who made that claim. Yeah,
right. And the U.S. intelligence also acknowledges that white supremacy is like our leading threat of terrorism in the United States. So I mean, it is a bit ridiculous. And so I tweeted out just kind of trolling, like, yeah, if you want to get on there, just say the truth and don't give in to trolls.
That's really scary for you and your family. And, you know, as far as Prague goes, that's a beautiful city. My friend actually, she and her husband were there because she's in Shakespeare, and they do, this was a couple years ago though. They do Shakespeare in Prague a lot with some American companies, and I'm kind of a Shakespeare geek. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, but there's a lot of filming done in Prague because it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's a really beautiful city. So I can see why you would love it. Now, going back to who came to your house, though, do you know, like, were they just random kind of weird, obsessed people, or were they?
I didn't talk to them. I live in a like my door doesn't have like the little hole that you can see out of. It's a pretty heavy door. And I was kind of afraid because it sounded like there was a lot of people, and I was afraid that as soon as I opened the door, people would just rush me and come in my house. So I just kept it shut and called the police. And I actually didn't interact with these people. I heard them talking. Right. I don't know what it was all about. Just like in my own personal life over this conflict and my alleged connection to Russia, which is like non-existent in my opinion. It's like just those weird harassment, criticism, like people that I know that I interact with my daily life. Like I made a Facebook, I usually don't address trolls, but when people came to my house, I made a post like, all right, like don't come to my fucking house or something, like I will fight back. Like, all right, this is how it is. Right. And I had people like victim shaming me, like, well, you shouldn't have said things, you shouldn't have done stuff. And I was all right, guys, he's like, way to go, my liberal Democrat friends, like really supporting free speech there, right?
Yeah, shit lips suck. I mean, I discovered that. As you know, I was I'd worked for Democrats, and when I came forward, I got a lot of death threats. Same thing. They were saying,
they support you up until it starts to affect their people, for sure.
And their narrative, especially their narrative, like they want that, and right now the narrative is Russia bad, China bad, America good.
Like one thing that I got labeled as a Russian propagandist because there was like one in the first days of this happening, there was people who were like having fires in front of the Russian embassy in Prague, calling in bomb threats and stuff. And I said, that there was like radical pro-NATO people that had US flags and stuff doing this in front of the embassy. And that same night, there happened to be like a peaceful march for peace in Ukraine. And I knew some people that were there, and they were like, you're spreading Russian propaganda because I was there and that's how it happened. I was like, dude, that like the embassy is there 24 hours a day, right? Like just because you're there at night and there's nothing going on, that there isn't people there before you, that there is things going on. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I've had, I don't know if you followed my show, but I've had a couple of journalists on that are facing severe threats, like Ava Bartlett, Alina,
She's there, right?
Lip.
Eva Bartlett's in.
Yeah, she's there in Donbass. So is Alina, and they've both been put on the Ukraine military kill list, which, as you know, 2 journalists have been killed and one is missing. And their governments, like Ava holds a Canadian and an American passport, Alina, a German, and their governments have not helped them. And in fact, the day it was released that she was on the kill list, they basically did a hit piece on her in NBC, called her a Russian propagandist, et cetera, et cetera. It's vile. And, you know, Alina is about your age. You're about my daughter's age. And for me, you know, it brings out the mom in me. I'm like, you guys are young at the beginnings of your career and you're being blacklisted. And Alina's facing criminal charges in Germany, and they froze her bank account and her father's. So she's facing up to 3 years in prison. No, Alina Lip. No, I said she's my daughter's age. Yeah, you are my daughter's age right now.
Okay.
So yeah. And that's why it kind of evokes this sort of like, hey, like these are young people at the beginning of their career. You're freezing their bank accounts. You're threatening their lives. They're trying to do their jobs. I mean, I remember what I was doing at that age. I was just going to DC, as a matter of fact. And, you know, I have to give you credit. You all are handling it with grace. And sorry, my cat's in the background, being really loud. So Che, stop it. I have a cat named Che Guevara, and he's not governable. So anyway, so yeah. So seeing you have to really fight to get your salaries, fight, you know, to not get demonetized, deplatformed, banned, censored, and even face jail is really, it's stunning.
You know, this isn't actually the first time I have to deal with this, though.
Yeah.
When I worked at Telesur like 5 years ago in Ecuador, and this was when Lenin Moreno first came into power, and we were dealing with oppression from his government. Then, of course, like it got much crazier after I left. But I remember like they had, you know, SWAT vehicles parked outside of our office, and like I was the editor on duty that time. I was like 21 or 22 or something. And people were like, what the fuck? Like, man, these cops here, and we had armed guards inside, and I'm like so young. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. Just do your job, you know, I think everything's going to be fine. But then I remember we had like one girl from Spain come, and immediately we couldn't pay her salary because of the US sanctions, because, you know, of course, Telesur is partially funded by the Venezuelan government. So because of the sanctions against Venezuela, we were all having trouble getting paid. And that was really scary. I mean, I moved back to the US for a spell over that and kind of the fears of that. But like moving forward in my life, try not to let those fears get in the way of stuff. You know, like I think like for example, I'm about to apply again for my Czech residency next month, and I'm currently thinking that it might get declined on some kind of national security ground, but like you know, I will fight that legally, or I will go somewhere else. Like everything will be fine. I mean, I'm not going to let some bullshit bureaucracy keep me from doing what it is that I do. You know, I've kind of decided that I want to do this for my life, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, and you're doing brave work. You're doing good work. We need balance, not just the Western lens, the narrative being shoved down our throats to, you know, propagate this proxy war that's being fought, you know, against Russia, you know, using Ukraine. And I think people are starting to see more citizens. Like if you notice, there's less of those Ukrainian flags in the bios, except for the troll farms. And, you know, but what you don't see is, like, for instance, Ava Bartlett just, you know, did a video series, because she's boots on the ground there in Donbass, of the butterfly, you know, the petal bombs that are being dropped on the civilians in that region, and the horrific, you know, war crime that is. Well, here in the States, Malcolm Nance, who is not a reporter, he's I don't know what he is. He's just, anyway, he said that it was from Russia and it wasn't. So he put that out there, and he has a huge platform. And so then when you saw media cover it, they were like, oh, Russia and Ukraine are blaming each other, when it was clearly Ukraine military that did it. And the Western media bias, I mean, how do you deal with that? Like, as a person that's interested in writing pieces, when you submit, do you get frustrated, you know, with that bias?
Um, hmm. And sometimes I find that these, at least for myself, that these biases can be an opportunity. Because, for example, the main, really like the main thing that I've been doing for the past couple of years has been reporting for Xinhua News Agency, which is China's official news agency, and I do like local news in the Czech Republic. Some of the most interesting stories that we've done has been basically fact checking these Western media claims. For example, we did one story when it's at the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. China was sending a lot of aid to Europe, and this was very embarrassing for the United States. And they sent this was after there was a huge diplomatic fallout with China and the Czech Republic, and they sent this huge convoy of aid to the Czech Republic, and we were among the first countries to use masks, and we were among the first countries to have COVID-19 tests that came directly from China. There was a story that was here, and I believe it was implanted in the local media by, you can guess whoever, but it was a total plant. It's so obvious to me that this is what it was. And they quoted like some nurse at a hospital that said, yeah, well, like most of the tests that we get from China don't work.
Right.
And they took that figure and ran with it. And then that was picked up by Bloomberg, and that was picked up by Fox News, and it was like on and on and on. And we interviewed the health ministry of the Czech Republic, and we had this news story that said, okay, is this true? Like, are you really finding evidence that Chinese tests don't work? And they clarified it for us, and they said, yeah, actually, the person that was interviewed on that radio report didn't know how to use the test. They didn't read the directions.
Oh, wow.
And that was a really great story for us, you know. And it happens, like, working in a press agency in the international news has really shown me how like stories are planted in foreign countries and then picked up by the American media to amplify certain narratives. And you see this, I mean, you see it everywhere. And that's why I think that, like, for example, Xinhua News Agency as a alternative to AP and Reuters and so on is so important. I think that there are certain kind of institutional reasons why they aren't like that. I would like to see reform in the Chinese media, especially like the press agency, to have more resources to do this kind of pushback stuff, which they're not doing enough of, but they're starting to, and stuff like that's like super important. And I see it as an opportunity.
Right. But you know, I know it's amazing how just doing your job can lead to you having like security issues, like you just had told at the top of the story. And you know, here in the United States, speaking of which, there's not just the pressure of weird trolls online, but you have agencies with the US government that are used and weaponized sometimes for people who speak out. Like, I don't know if you heard about it, but late last week, there was an FBI raid on the Black Socialist movement in Florida.
I was actually just going to mention that.
Yeah. Hey, Reef, if you could throw up that piece right there, the link to it. What was really interesting was they used flash grenades on unarmed people, flash grenades as they entered their house. I mean, think about the children and pets in these people's homes. These are unarmed, you know, people just wanting, again, like you had said earlier, they're not wanting war, they're wanting peace, and they're wanting, you know, colonialism to stop. And they're talking about, you know, the colonialism of Africa, and they are talking about the way, you know, Palestinians are being, you know, occupied by Israel, and the horrific crimes that are happening to Palestinians. And just for that, they, without a warrant, without a search warrant, anything, they went in. So are you seeing any backlash in Europe like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know to what extent the laws that are on the books right now have actually been used. I think only a few examples, but they have just like straight up outlawed any type of what they regard as pro-Russian speech. Like, it is actually a crime. You can go to prison for several years for this. And that's why I've kind of been watching my back, because I'm like, anything that is pro-Russian could theoretically land me in prison. And for example, the Czech Ministry of Justice has put out guidelines saying that, yeah, they can and will arrest people for this. And they've already arrested a few people. Now, I think that these people that they arrested were like straight up like, yeah, we love Putin, like kill all the Ukrainians, we fucking hate, you know, all this, whatever. Like these people are kind of off the walls, I think, you know, but how far can it go? I mean, we've seen that it can go pretty far. I mean, they've already completely cut the cord on RT, for example, all over the European Union,
Right.
which is where, one of my columns is hosted, so people can't see what I write. And what I write is, like, in my opinion, not really that inflammatory at all. I think it's like,
No,
just like, hey, this is what's happening here.
it's just sort of objective and factual. But if you've noticed, the Western media particularly has really moved to this opinion journalism. So it's not really journalism. And and I'm not a journalist. I'm just a writer. I've written op-eds, and it's very different than what you do. As investigative journalism is, you're trained to do that. You're educated to do that. And it's a very highly skilled profession. And unfortunately, in the West, we have a lot of people that are doing it more for other reasons, and just basically they call them stenographers, but it's not hyperbole that they are stenographers for the State Department. They're like literally just writing down talking points, and you'll find the same article with the same points on every single outlet, and it's annoying. So RT provided this great kind of balance, because also they covered more international issues that aren't being covered, like in other places. Because US media is so looking at their own navel all the time that you don't get to see what's happening in the world, really from their perspective. And here it's censored, but I think in Great Britain, it's banned. They pulled their license, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like just such a, I think that most people are just so naive about how media works, like in reality, and that they see, CNN and the New York Times, Washington Post is somehow independent media outlets, and it's shunned upon if you work for a so-called state media outlet. But like in reality, the same people who control these media outlets are the same people that control the U.S. government. So it's really not very much different than just being U.S. state media, is it?
Right.
Personally, in my own career, I have pretty much exclusively worked for foreign state media, and I've done that like just as a principal position, because I'm never going to work for corporate media, because I just detest them. I don't like what they do, and I got to tell you that in my time of doing that, I've worked at Telesur, I've worked for RT, I've worked like I said at Xinhua, and I've written columns for Global Times, China Daily, CGTN, and stuff like that. And their fact checking, especially, by the way, Xinhua news agency, in my opinion, is like the best news agency in the world in terms of facts. I mean, like they do not print mistakes because they do not make mistakes. And I've been in so many meetings talking about this and why we have such a high quality standard there, and like the internal mechanisms for finding mistakes is really incredible. And I think that if you're reading them, you can 100% trust them. But there's still that stigma of it being state-run media. But like, I think that there's a growing number of young people like myself that are working for foreign state media that tells a different narrative. And if the U.S. really has such a problem with that, they need to have media that tells a different objective side of that story. If there existed an outlet in the United States that told, a global perspective on events, I would gladly work there.
Right.
But I'm not going to work at any of the existing corporate media, because what they do, in my opinion, is terrible. At the same time, like I welcome, mostly, like with very few, like with some exceptions, unless it's like some like outright Nazi outlet, I will talk to, pretty much any media outlet that gives me a voice, and that's why. I have all the outlets that I have that talk to me. I've even been quoted, for example, I think a couple months ago on BBC. Like I detest the BBC, the British government, what they stand for, but I will gladly like give them, quote about China's Belt and Road Initiative if they come and ask me. Like it's not a big deal. But yeah, I mean, I think that the US, there really just aren't any alternative outlets, and I think it's really sad that there's so many young journalism students that don't have like anything that they're trained to do. Like there's no outlet for them for anything they're trained to do. It's all nepotism and legacy media and shit like this.
Right. And a lot of it is inaccurate. And I don't know if you know anything about my story, but there were article after article from AP, Washington Post, New York Times.
I followed your story.
There's so many. Yeah. Okay. Well, then half the stuff they said about me wasn't even true. Like, I mean, to the point of like where I was from. I mean, like it was really stunning, like the inaccuracies and the lies, and they just have no problem with making up shit if they don't have the information. Like they don't care. They just
like they don't even just ask you. Right.
No, right. Oh, no, you have.
I mean, that's like the most. Yeah. That's the most like common thing. Like for example, at Xinhua, we get destroyed by our editors for like fucking up the basic biographical details of people. Like you mess up somebody, like you'll lose your job if you spell somebody's name wrong. If you get where they're from wrong, if it's out there, if you don't even ask them, like you can get like deductions in their internal points and stuff like this. And then like it's true that in Western media, like they just reprint falsehoods without even just asking somebody the basic facts. It's really terrible. I mean, well,
and they do it with a with something in mind. They want to hurt, they want to harm, they want to bury a story, suppress it, or they want to vilify someone. And you see a lot of examples of this, how they keep talking about how the Russian president was dying for a long time. Now they say he's too healthy, that kind of shit. I mean, it's just, the CIA director said he was too healthy. I don't even know what that means, except it kind of sounds, but I was going to ask you too about, boots on the ground reporting. Are you going to be able in the future to go to some of the places that you want to go to do reporting? Or are you being a little more restricted, like Alina, for instance, Alina Lip is from travel? And I know there's been sanctions. I think the most latest one was Graham just got sanctioned for, is it Graham Phillips? Graham Phillips, I believe. He was in Donbass and he just got sanctioned by the British government. And so they seized his home.
Jeez.
And they froze all his bank accounts. And because he was reporting from the Donbass and whatnot. And then, I know I heard some months back, Brian McDonald, he was sanctioned, which means he can't travel in the EU just for working at RT. And then Alina Lip is facing 3 years in prison. She can't travel in the EU because Interpol would take her to Germany. So are you worried about that? I mean, is that now that you're on this list, or is that something that you're just going to ignore and just do your job?
I didn't think of it until you just mentioned that.
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to be a downer on Monday morning, but there you have it.
I don't know. I mean, like, if they're going to sanction everybody on that list, it's like, is the EU going to sanction Glenn Greenwald and Rand Paul, Tulsi Gabbard? I doubt it.
You know what? They didn't give consequences, did they? They didn't say, "Oh, well, you can't."
There are no consequences for being on that list. I mean, Ukraine. By the way, the Ukrainian government didn't even list any consequences. I assume that I will not be able to travel to Ukraine. But like, big fucking deal. There's a whole world out there I could travel to. So. Right.
Yeah.
In terms of like what could happen, I mean, I'm probably like, the next stone to fall, I'll be on it at some point. I don't know. And then in terms of like I can travel wherever. I was just in the US like a couple weeks ago. Actually, enough, it was fine. I mean, I didn't even get questioned by anybody. I was already on the list and I didn't know it. And then, so I assumed
Newsweek and others did this. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, but people told me later, but like, I think even the media didn't know about the list until a few days ago. But like when the list came out, I was not questioned by US Customs or going back into the EU, nothing. Like, so I don't think that there's any consequences with that, which is cool.
Good.
I don't know, maybe in the future there will be. I'm not sure. And then in terms of like me wanting to, I think that war reporting and stuff like this is a whole different skill set, and I don't think I'm cut out for that. Maybe one day. I'm learning Russian right now. It's been about a year and a half, so I speak okay. But if I'm going to go to Donetsk, or Donbass, I would like to speak like enough that I don't need a handler. This is kind of just a principled thing. I like to be kind of independent.
How are you learning Russian? So what
I just have a teacher.
Oh, so you're doing it formally. Okay. So you're not doing like an app like Duolingo or something like that?
No.
Yeah. All right. I had a couple books I've learned, because I like to learn languages. I speak a little Italian. I speak Italian. I speak a little French, some other things. But I just think it's fun to learn different languages. And Russian is a beautiful language, but it is quite different. The Slavic base rather than English is Germanic and Latin based, and it's just a different structure. But have you been finding it hard, or are you able to practice it and able to?
Oh, there's a ton of Russian and Ukrainian Russian speaking people in Prague. There's like a whole post-Soviet community here. Sometimes I would just like, for example, if I like order some food or something, like people just call me, "Здравствуйте, I'm like, okay, all right. So we've got like, I'll order from like Russian restaurant and they'll just speak to me in Russian without even going to Czech. It's like, okay, here we are.
Nice, nice. Did you know any Czech? Are you learning some of Czech as well?
I speak a bit of Czech, but I'm not really keen
really
on it. You know, it's like if I learn, like, so my whole thought process behind it is like, I really don't want to, I don't know, like I feel like Czech Republic is kind of like purgatory. It's like people are kind of going in and out, you know, it's really cool place, cute town and everything, but it's like people are going in and out. It's not their final destination. So if I'm going to learn this language, it's like only useful here, and it's actually more difficult than Russian to learn.
Oh, is
so
it?
I'm looking at probably like 3 to 5 years of intense study to actually speak it, and it kind of like with everything I have going on doesn't really seem worth it right now. But I don't know. My girlfriend is Czech and she wants me to learn, so.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. Well, that's the best way to learn is to have a loved one who can, you know, help you. What about your band? Talk a little bit about your band.
Oh my gosh, my band. How'd you find out about that?
Because you posted about it.
Oh yeah.
And because your picture is singing into a
you asked me
I mean, it was
this,
just sort of a logical deduction. Yeah.
Yeah, you asked me before this, if there's anything to plug. I said no, but actually my band has a debut EP coming out in like 5 days.
Okay.
And it's gonna be really exciting. We're doing a little small tour of Europe. We're playing in Budapest on Saturday, and then we're gonna be in Slovakia next weekend, and then back in Prague.
And what's the name of
another
it?
show? The band's called Blank in the Nothing.
And what's the genre of music?
I don't know. It's kind of like it's like 90s alt rock kind of, but more.
Very cool. All right, a little bit of.
I would say we're kind of like Alice in
Boys?
Chains.
Okay. Beastie Boys energy? No, yeah.
No, definitely not.
No.
But we're kind of going more like alt metal direction. I don't know. Yeah, you can check it out when it comes out. We have a single that's out right now. It's like kind of pop rock ish.
Where can people find it? Is it on Bandcamp or where is it?
It'll be on iTunes, Spotify, pretty much
good.
Anywhere you get your music.
Okay. Bandcamp is another one to check out. I guess it's kind of new too. So, but I'm not sure how it's monetized. So probably.
I don't either.
Better.
I really don't know a lot about all this stuff. I kind of let the other guys tell me what to do with stuff.
Now, do you play? Are you doing vocals and guitar, or what are you doing?
I do vocals mainly. I play guitar live on some songs, but I do I'm a multi-instrumentalist, so I compose the music. And I compose it on guitar, so I'm like using the guitar to write music and stuff. But singing is my thing.
Oh, well, great. Okay, well, definitely everyone check that out. So they can go to your Twitter page probably and find out.
You know, I try to keep like a wall between this because the guys have been telling me like, yeah, don't politicize shit, man. So I try to keep
songs are not political either. Okay. Well, that's cool.
I try to use this like therapy. It's like all the anger that I build up in my journalism work, I try to unleash it musically. So the music is like really fucking awesome. It's kind of like my therapy. I try to keep it separate, but you know, like I'm kind of like, maybe I should just be who I am. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's up to you how you want to do that, but yeah, it's music is wonderful. I play a little bit of guitar and flute, so I like it myself. I don't play in a band, and I don't subject people to my music, but but it does help you. It works on a different part of your brain. It's like when I do art or when I'm with my horse. You know, I'm doing a horse activity, riding horses and stuff. You're a different part of your brain's activated, and it does get out like that tension and that stress. It's really good to have those things in our lives that, you know, fulfill us.
It really does. And it's like my most rewarding feeling ever is when I hear a crowd of people singing lyrics that I wrote. I'm just like, man, that is just so fucking cool. You
know, that is really cool. That's really cool. So for our audience, please check out his work, and as well as his musical talent. And I wanted to also check in with Reef and see, sometimes in the chat, people have questions or comments. Reef, did you want to highlight anything?
A few of them.
Oh, looks like we got a lot of activity there. Okay.
Yeah, so are the Czech West or Central Europe, do they want to be the only country to hold the title as Central Europe? Yipper asks.
Okay, that's such a complicated question because the Czech Republic, like if you ask Czech people, actually maybe I'll get my girlfriend to answer that question if you guys don't mind.
Yeah,
Sure.
great.
Hey, Laura, are you there? Hey, they have a question on this podcast about whether or not the Czech Republic is Eastern, Central, Western Europe. Do you want to answer that? Yeah. Do you want to answer that? Do you want me to answer it for you? I mean, okay, fine. All right. I'll answer it very, very honestly.
Okay.
She's looking at me now. She's like judging me.
Hi,
like,
Laura.
very
Everyone's saying hi to Laura. Hi, Laura. We want to see you. Come on in the camera if you want. Only if you want. Okay. But we heard your voice.
All right. So
Go ahead.
the Czech Republic calls itself like very strictly, and if you ask people, they will insist that they are Central Europe, right? And because of the fact that they're in the European Union and they're joined NATO and stuff like that, if you hear other countries talk about them, I think they will usually include them politically in the West.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who lives here, somebody who sees the way things are, the way people behave, the language, the culture, and so on, I can tell you that this is very much an Eastern European country. And okay, she's giving me a thumbs up. Okay, I did good.
This has been approved by Laura. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's true though. I mean, like, it's, as much as people like don't want to have the legacy of the East, you know, the Warsaw Pact, former Soviet Union and stuff, it's true. They really are like that. And if you ask, for example, a lot of Ukrainians or Russians that live in Prague, they will tell you, I came here because it's not that different. You know, it's like not as much of a culture shock as going to New York or London or something. Like there's still, you know, similar stores, people behave the same, people are a little bit cold, kind of like in Eastern Europe, but you behave the same, you have the panel houses and so on. It's kind of Eastern. Okay.
Right. Very cool. All right. Any other questions or comments?
They ask, do you see any protest or anything that can be a protest, such as the Dutch or Italian farmers in relation to the Ukraine wars and stuff happening? Like near to those, like here in the US especially, you know?
So is that about the United States or about the Czech Republic?
We can do both. I'll do both.
Okay. That whole, so I was actually just like doing something on the Dutch farmers recently, and that is very interesting with what's going on there. And like some of the right-wing media is trying to paint it as this kind of, I mean, I guess the immediate like reaction that's causing that is the climate deal that they're trying to do to limit the nitrogen emissions. So it's like kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to the Dutch government's climate agenda. And I don't think that's going to happen in the United States or in the Czech Republic, because like Joe Biden can't pass this climate agenda. And of course, the right-wing Czech government's never going to pass any serious climate legislation. So I think that won't happen because of that. But I think that the wider, you know, impetus behind the movement is a reaction to, you know, inflation and the destitution that people are facing. So like, in the long term, maybe like next year or something, I could definitely see that, you know, farmers and stuff could have some kind of protest movement, but I don't think it'll be anywhere to the extent that what's happening in the Netherlands or even in Germany or Canada as kind of like a piggyback on that.
And you've been, go ahead, Reef. Any more?
Yeah, one more. What are other potential problem areas in Europe economically?
Well, we've got Germany, right? Germany suffering, France. Where else? England.
So you know what's so interesting is like, so Germany just had its first trade deficit in like 30 years. Now it's for the month of May. All of the major industrial countries in Europe, which includes Germany and also like the Czech Republic and Slovakia, Hungary did not have a trade deficit, but I didn't see the date on Slovakia, but I would assume it's the same as the Czech Republic. But we also had a $1 billion trade deficit here. And it's like the growth model of these countries has been to use cheap Russian energy to, create value added products, manufacturing, and then export that to the rest of the world and have this trade surplus, and that's how you generate economic growth. Because of how expensive energy is getting now, because of the war in Ukraine and the sanctions against Russia after that, the entire growth models of countries like the Czech Republic, like Germany, just don't work anymore. And it's like we're really, there's this kind of discussion now about, is Europe just going to be a summer destination for the Chinese and the Americans, but not actually like an economic player itself? And I think genuinely that could be true, because like their only economic leverage has been to use the cheap energy for its manufacturing, and that could be gone now, and that's a very serious thing.
Wow, that is.
There was an interview recently in the German press about the paper industry. I didn't know that about, I forget the exact figure, but maybe something like a third of all of the paper in Europe is in Germany, and they're facing. I mean, think about what paper is it? That's everything.
A third? I didn't realize it was that much. Okay, go on.
Yeah, it's like everything. I mean, it's like newspapers, toilet paper, food products, medicine, everything, like boxes for everything that you can think of. Their supply of paper will be totally screwed by cutting out gas, right? And the way the paper mills work in Germany is they really can't like turn over to a new energy source, for several years. So a disruption in the supply there would completely that's so many products rely on paper. People don't understand like the threat to the supply chain that this is. And I think Europe like really, 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 really is in a bad spot now that people don't even fully comprehend.
Yeah, and the US kind of put them there, wouldn't you say? As far as and you've seen Boris Johnson step down, you've seen Macron lose his majority, and you've seen the Italians lose their government, and their legislature dissolved. So do you think you're going to see more of this across Europe, or do you feel like the Czech, and I'm not sure you can talk about this, but how stable that is and all that, but
we have a political crisis here that's I mean, we have a newly elected government of what's so funny about this is that it's like this is an anti-corruption government that was elected against the former populist who genuinely was like a corrupted billionaire. But the thing is that he was utilizing laws in the books that were created by the party that's in power now.
Right.
So like the laws in the books that were created that created the conditions for the corrupt billionaire are it's the coalition that just came to power. It's like, yeah, we will see a repeat of this political crisis in the Czech Republic, hands down. And we're going to see it, I would say, all over Eastern and Central Europe for sure. It's a situation. I mean, the economic crisis in Europe precipitates the political crisis. And, as the first one gets worse, the second one will follow, and we don't even fully understand this. As the situation in Ukraine continues, it's only going to get worse. And as you mentioned, the European Union has completely thrown its sovereignty out the window, abandoned, its notion of strategic autonomy, and allowed itself to just be a lackey of Washington. And it's completely destroying Europe's economy. And after that will be just the downfall of European society.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's, and one last thing, we have Caleb Maupin that's going to be joining us in a moment here, but I wanted to ask you one last thing, because you do work for China Daily. So this seems, I don't want to like skip over this. The whole hullabaloo about Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan. Now, the last thing before I came on with you, I got an alert that she's not going, but then I had another alert saying she was going. So I know they're purposefully just like, making it mysterious, if you will, whether she's going to be there or not. But what are you writing about that, and what are your thoughts on that real quickly? And then we'll bring
I actually just submitted a column about this right before I got on with y'all.
Okay.
Right. So so first of all, just because Nancy Pelosi didn't say that she's going to Taiwan in her official notice doesn't mean that she said she's not going.
Right.
Like we have to keep that there. So it's kind of like up in the air whether she'll go. We had sensational reports from Taiwan media, which, by the way, the Taiwan media tends to be quite sensational a lot. So when I first saw that they said she was going, I kind of didn't believe it. But then I saw that CNN quoted U.S. officials as saying that she was going to go. Yeah. And that seems much more credible to me, if U.S. officials know something about that. And that's quite dangerous. What is my first reaction to that, if that should happen? I just thought, like, wow, what a fucking crazy system we have, because it's like we have two consecutive quarters of economic degrowth, which is the literal definition of a recession. At the same time, we have record inflation. So that's teetering on the definition of stagflation. That is an unprecedented economic crisis. And I just have a column for RT that's going to be published today talking about this. But what is so unprecedented about that economic situation that we're in now is the way that we got out of it the last time was through globalization, was through opening up new markets by creating economic growth in places like China. But the political forces that we have now are doing the opposite. They're deglobalizing. So that means that the stagflation that we're facing will actually get worse as the experiment they're running on Russia to deglobalize Russia, goes on. It will get worse, right? So at the same time that crisis is happening, and that is, not completely divorced from the situation with China, but it's like it's happening. Our leaders are like, yeah, we're not content with one war in Europe. Let's start another fucking war in China with Taiwan. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is.
And, Putin once said that the U.S. is going the Soviet path. That is, that it believes it's overconfident with unlimited power and it's stretching itself too thin. But then I saw an even better analysis. And let me find the exact person who said this. But this is a Chinese scholar. His name is Zhang Yongmian. He's a presidential chair professor, acting dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and the founding director of the Advanced Institute of Global and Contemporary China Studies. He said that the United States is both like the Soviet Union from the outside and like China's late Qing dynasty from the inside, because he made the comparison that the Qing dynasty still believed, before they were defeated by the Japanese in the first Sino-Japanese War, that they were the center of humanity, celestial empire, before they had this embarrassing defeat by the Japanese to kind of bring them back to earth. And then the first thing I thought was like, this is our Sino-Japanese war moment. This is the thing that's going to bring the American elite back to earth, is if we suffer this painful defeat. And it's like, that's what we're setting ourselves up for, to be like the Qing dynasty and the Soviet Union all at once.
That's a really, really profound analysis. Really, really good. Yeah. And it's unreal that at this moment in history that they're picking to do this, antagonizing China in such a way. After decades of diplomacy, it's literally destroying decades of diplomacy in one egotistical megalomaniac trip, because they won't back down. But it's all, from an American perspective, it's all because the midterms are coming and they're losing. And
it's really crazy to me.
They're creating this drama.
What's really crazy to me is that they're saying that this has nothing to do with the administration, right? That this has only to do with the legislature. This is only a political stunt. Joe Biden has nothing to do with this. Right. Then why is it the Department of Defense talking about defending Pelosi? That's the executive branch of government jumping in to defend her. Why is there an official U.S. plane that she's flying on? Right. This is a tacit endorsement, not an outright one, but a tacit endorsement. And it doesn't help their case when the Democratic Party, that's the party of Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. It doesn't help their case at all. China is going to look at it like that, and they already look at it like that. Like, from the readout of the call between Xi and Biden, that's exactly how they see it.
Yeah, very good. Well, I want to bring in our other guest, who is also on the same list you are, Brad, Caleb Maupin, and who is a correspondent with RT. Caleb, thank you for taking time out, because I know you said you had a busy day today and you're doing a lot of work. So thank you for joining us.
Sure. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'm super excited. I get to be with you in person this weekend for the conference. So could you, first, before you get into that, though, if you could talk to Brad, and you can talk a little bit about your, position on the list, on the Ukrainian government blacklist. And I think you were in Newsweek, as well as Brad, about that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? What was the criteria to get you on this list and get you not on it, right? Because Tulsi Gabbard and Rand Paul are on the list. Every person who's ever had anything to do with Schiller Institute practically is on the list. Former president of Brazil, and it's quite an eclectic list, right? I wonder how they concocted it and who got on and who didn't. I know people that are much more prominent than I am that make statements about Russia who didn't get on the list, et cetera. So I'm perplexed by who made this list and how they made the decision, but I'll take it. I take it as a compliment. I'm doing my job. I'm doing what needs to be done. I'm sure Bradley takes it the same way.
Yeah. I take it pretty much the same way. I mean, yeah, there's many other people. For example, I was surprised that Noam Chomsky wasn't on there. I was just like, come on, give the old man some credit,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of, people
Henry
with social
Kissinger,
media way bigger than mine who were talking about Russia and telling the truth about Ukraine and stuff. And, they weren't on the list. So I wonder if it's simply because I'm an RT guy and I'm based in the United States. Maybe that's what the issue is. But, my Twitter was tagged as Russian state affiliated media, which is ridiculous because I post pictures of my wife and I go into parties and stuff. Like I post, it's my personal Twitter. It's not, my maintaining the capacity as RT. And on top of that, Twitter has never verified me. So if they've never verified me, how do they know it's my actual account? They need to at least verify me if they're going to tag me as Russian state affiliated media, because that would indicate they seem to know who I am.
Caleb, I was thinking that too about my affiliation with RT because I have a column there, and I was thinking that must be, and I go on there sometimes. That must be why it's there. But actually, I think they were reading much more of my statements than that. I think it was a little bit more than that actually, because I was just telling Tahara before this. They somehow figured out that I live in the Czech Republic, and I don't say that on RT. It's not there in my column. I took it off actually because there was an incident at my house. I had to call the police. Trolls and shit were here. Yeah, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, I think they were reading more of our stuff, much more.
Indeed.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. So Caleb, I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about two things. Talk about the FBI raid last week real quick, and then get into the conference.
All right. Well,
and Brad and I just touched on it, but I you've covered it quite extensively. I just wanted your 2 cents on that.
Well, the African People's Socialist Party, which is a Black nationalist and Marxist political group that's been in the United States for the last several decades. They're known as the Uhuru movement. They have several different organizations affiliated with them. On Friday morning, their offices in Florida, their offices in St. Louis, the homes of various of their members got greeted by flashbang explosives, guns pointed in people's faces. They got raided by the FBI. People were put in handcuffs. People had guns pointed in their faces. Drones were used. It was a really intense display of force by U.S. law enforcement, all to set the stage for announcing this indictment. And they're claiming that this Russian named Alexander Ionov, that he has, he runs a nonprofit called the Anti-Globalization Movement. And they're claiming that he donated to them. And that's all they've got. That this wealthy Russian who runs an NGO in Russia gave them some money. And they're claiming that he with this money, he was using them as somehow being Russian agents or whatever. And on that basis, they terrorized this whole group of Black activists. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's unprecedented. Now, these people haven't even been charged, let me mind you. The indictment was only against the Russian. So a group of people that were not charged with any crime, got terrorized by the FBI. We now have the FBI, indicting a Russian in a foreign country, and they're terrorizing them for allegedly giving them some money. This is a heavy-handed amount of repression, and it makes you ask the question, right? If you have a GoFundMe, or if you have a Patreon, you don't know who those people are, right? You don't know. I get super chats. I do YouTube. I don't know who the people on the other end are. And is the government gonna, kick down my door and raid me and point guns in my face and have drones fly over and flashbang explosives come to my house just because that somebody who donated online with a super chat or a GoFundMe or a Patreon is somebody no good? This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is an all-out attack And then the media just going along with it and pointing out, oh, well, this group, you know, talks about Ukraine and such. That doesn't matter, right? I mean, they have the right to say that. You know, that doesn't justify what happened. And I think it's important that we oppose this. You know, I've made statements, and others, we need to call out what's going on. This is an unacceptable act, right? This is McCarthyism, right? When you label dissidents as agents of Russia, right? This is what was done to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They called him a Russian agent. They had a billboard along the highways that said, here's a picture of Martin Luther King at a communist training school, right? The program the FBI used to go after Dr. Martin Luther King was called COINTELPRO, which is for counterintelligence program, because they considered the civil rights movement to be a wing of Soviet intelligence, right? That was how much that propaganda was used against the civil rights movement. And now to see it be used against a group of black activists here in the 21st century is just you know, horrifying to me. And let me add on top of that you know, I don't agree with the Uhuru movement. They don't agree with me. So what, right? What we need now more than ever is everyone who is in favor of civil liberties and opposed to a new war with Russia and wants, you know, free speech. We all need to come together and defend them and call this out, right? And they don't agree with me. I don't agree with them. You know, I consider myself to be a patriotic American and a socialist. They are very much black nationalists, black separatists. That doesn't matter. What matters is calling out the government for what it's doing right now and making clear that that this shall not pass. And so that's what I wanted to say about that. Now, as far as the conference, it's going to be awesome. I am so excited to have you there at the podium. We'll be at Deerfield, Illinois, Hyatt Plaza Hotel. It's in the Chicago area. It's like a suburb of Chicago. And you are going to be there. Garland Nixon is going to be there. It looks like Peter Coffin is going to be there. Dan Kovalik has sent us a great electronic statement. He had to go to Columbia, but he sent us a beautiful electronic statement, you know, that is going to be played. And there's going to be music. There's going to be speeches, people from different organizations. It's going to be a really, really great afternoon at Deerfield Plaza Hotel. It's going to be tremendous. And I'm really, really excited to have you there, Tara. The Center for Political Innovation, we're putting on this important political conference. The slogan is Unite Against the Imperialists. And that's what we need. You know, we need to work with anybody, libertarians, you know, anyone who is going to oppose these wars and oppose the drive toward war with China and Russia, you know, stand up for working families, say we need money for jobs and not war, money to rebuild America's crumbling infrastructure. That's what we need to do very loudly. And it looks like I've been talking with the Uhuru folks. We may actually bring a representative from their group there to show solidarity as well. So it's going to be an exciting day. A lot of things are up in the air, and I'm in Chicago here on the ground coordinating things. I've got about 100 meetings between now and Friday, but it's going to be good, and I'm really, really excited. So thank you for coming to that, Tara. I'm really, really excited to see you, and it's going to be great. And anyone who's watching should really make a point of coming. It'll be doors open at 1 p.m. Deerfield Hyatt Plaza Hotel.
On Saturday. And then Reef, could you put up the poster and also put up the Cash App? So another thing that we wanted to do too is ask our audience, you know, rather than tip me today for my stream, please just donate that to the Cash App for the Center of Political Innovation, because, you know, right now putting on a conference is difficult with all the flights that have tripled in costs and everything else. So support our grassroots effort to bring a conversation about, you know, fighting back against imperialism. So there it is in the chat. And Caleb, I know you're shy about asking for donations, but I'm not, so I'll ask for you. So there you have it. And yeah, and I'm really excited to be on the stage with so many esteemed, you know, scholars on the issue. So thank you for inviting me. And yeah. And why don't we do that really quick? Yeah, that's fine. Nice video. Nice video. Well done. Thank you for doing that, Caleb.
All right. Well, thank you. And I'm really excited to have you there. And it's really good to talk with a fellow Ukrainian blacklisted person. My best wishes to you, Bradley. I like your articles. You write some good stuff. So yeah, thanks for inviting me on here. I think I'm going to run. Okay. All right. Talk to you soon.
Back to it. Right. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Good luck, Caleb.
Bye-bye.
All right. So Brad, one final question I had, just as far as you were mentioning, you have a story going up today on RT. Tell us how people can find your work and where and what else you're working on.
I don't even know how you can access RT, like depending on where you are.
It's kind of complicated, Rumble. You know? Yeah, you can get it on Rumble. You can get it. It's just hard to share it. Like you can get it on Google, but it's just hard to share in the US.
All right. So. Okay. So yeah, my column that's going up today is on RT. I wrote about kind of what I was talking about, about how the administration is saying that we're not in a recession, but I argue that we are, and I argue why it's much worse than you think it is because of the different historical factors. The fact that, for example, the Federal Reserve is applying a monetary theory that's trying to address demand side issues, even though we have very clear supply side issues because of disease, because of weather events around the world, because of war, I think it's a really important topic that people should be talking about. I mean, it's like the people running our entire government, whether it be monetary, fiscal, economic, every policy, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. I mean, honestly.
I know. Well, actually they do. They're lining their pockets. They're making a lot of money right now. They're a very small group of people are making a great deal of money.
But at the same time, it is driving this empire into the ground. We had Caleb on and his organization. I think, one disagreement that I have with his organization, I respect what they do, of course, but this idea of still kind of like maintaining American patriotism in the face of all this, and myself, who does not live in the United States and probably never will again, I don't agree with that. And I think one of the ways that what we're doing in the United States is kind of destroying our empire is driving talent away, actually, from the U.S. And the U.S. has already said that it's a threat to our national security. It's a threat to our innovation. It's a threat to our national security. That talented people don't want to be in the United States anymore.
I think it's nuanced, because what you just said is interesting, because I don't consider myself a patriot either. I'm not into that, because patriotism to me is too close to nationalism and it gets violent, right? I just don't, you know what I mean? And I don't subscribe to that particular, but I think when political organizations that tend to have a philosophy that want to promote workers' rights, it's naturally associated, because of McCarthyism, because of the propaganda, with the former Soviet Union. And that propaganda is so deeply, it's almost subconscious in the US citizens, mind, that it's almost like organizations like that have to say, hey, but we are patriotic. We're not an enemy of the state, because US intelligence services designate organizations like this as enemies of the state. So it's almost like a way to say, when they're doing reach out to people that are workers, like, no, you're not an enemy of the state to be part of this. You're standing up for your rights. That's kind of how I see it, but I could be wrong. I don't know, but
that's a fair point. I mean, I definitely see that. But the point that I wanted to make was that I think it's going to be the case years down the road that, as happens with other countries that aren't prospering that well, that they have a brain drain one way, meaning that talented people leave their country. I think it will be the case with the United States, that talented people leave the United States, and that will create dysfunction within the country. And I was mentioning Caleb's group as a patriotic group, whereas I would argue that the more revolutionary act to hasten the decline of the American empire would be to leave.
And I've thought about leaving myself. I know Fiorella, Isabella's now left and she's gone to Moscow, but she's going, and I'm really proud of her work. And I have thought of leaving myself because, they make it, when you speak out against the empire, they make it impossible for you to function. Like, for instance, when I was going for like another job or whatever, they said I was a security risk. I'm called a security risk anywhere, even a something that has nothing to do with media, just private company, whatever, because of, my political views are very obviously out there. So it's hard to live here. They've made it hard. They demonetize you. They deplatform you. You can't function. And if you can't function, why do you want to live there? And how can you?
I was just there last week. It sucks.
Yeah.
It straight up sucks.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and I were there. We were like, yeah, we're never going to live here. We were there for 2 weeks. The second day, we almost got shot. I swear, there was a shooting on our street that we were staying at. There was a shooting at a line at a bar that we were at. We barely missed it by 15 minutes. We almost got shot. We were in New York City for one day, like a few days. There was flooding in the metro. The system, like the infrastructure there, was broken in the country. There was a hot weather event, and we got COVID there.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
Still kind of getting over it. That's why I'm coughing. But
okay. So I hope you get better soon. That's amazing. That's a terrible experience. You were only in Manhattan. Did you go anywhere else or no?
We were Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens.
I'm on the Oregon coast. I'm on the coastline of the Pacific Northwest.
Never been there. Maybe it's a nice place.
It's beautiful, but there's a decline. I mean, there's a supply shortage. When I have to go down to 3 or 4 stores, and I'm starting to get used to it to get certain items. I mean, and they keep saying, oh, there's a supply issue. Because, I'm kind of out in the middle, I stay rural because I have a horse and stuff, and I don't like to be in cities. I like to be near the ocean as well. So, but what I'm finding is that everywhere you go, like San Francisco, I don't even recognize it anymore. I don't even recognize it. It's so run down. It's terrible. So what you're saying is true. The decline has been in the last 3 years, just remarkable. And we now have over 500,000 people without homes. So in the Pacific Northwest and the Pacific Coast, you see a lot of more homeless because of the weather is more, it's easier to sleep outside, right? It's warmer. And it's so tragic and sad. And instead of dealing with it, they're criminalizing it. So like, for instance, in some places, it's illegal to camp. So they're putting homeless people who can't afford a home and are struggling with either mental health or just joblessness, right? And putting them in jail. And so, the country is in a severe decline. It's a severe decline.
Just my final message to people here that are watching, like my advice to you is if this country treats you like you don't fucking matter, like you're not good enough, leave. If you got the means to, I would really highly recommend to leave. Go anywhere else. You will have a better life.
Yeah.
Truly. I believe that.
Yep. Well, there you have it. Thank you for joining us. And thank you everyone who watched today. Please check out Bradley Blankenship's work. He's on RT, he's on Daily China, he's on so many things. Check out his Twitter. It's listed there in the comments below, his links, and also his band. So, if you can check out his band too, and which is non-political. so yeah, and we look forward to more of your work, and there you go. So everyone have a great day. We'll see you next time. I'll probably have another show next Monday after the conference, and we'll do a recap, and we'll have some special guests then. Thank you everyone for joining. See you soon. Take care.